All right, so be honest. How many senators actually understand the legislation?
I think I'll say 75% for sure. Do their research. I would say it's closer to 100% understand the bill that they're presenting because they're given it up front and they tend to do research on it because it is a volunteer program. So if the ones that do show up, they normally are doing it because they want to and because they have a good time with it, so they're more kind of encouraged and want to learn about the issues. And then for the whole Senate, people that do this typically like politics, are typically politically involved, so they normally have a good understanding of the issues. Maybe not the nitty-gritty. I know, especially from pulling the legislation and cutting it all, it's very difficult. There's parts of the bill that I don't understand, but I would say pretty good amount do. Most people, especially this year, we had a good group this year.
So you selected all the legislation that would be talked about?
Yeah, my committee and I, the planning committee and I, selected the legislation, and we pull it off the Library of Congress's website. We cut it down to try to get it between 2 to 5 pages, and we basically, to do that, we just cut out the unnecessary parts like definitions and findings and things that aren't really substantive, and so we do it all ourselves. So that's probably the most difficult task we have in the whole event.
Yeah, that's impressive. So which senator are you?
I was Senator Harry Reid, who's the majority leader.
Right.
So
what's his role?
So he's the majority leader, so that means he is obviously the head of the majority party, which are the Democrats. And the way the Senate works, which a lot of people don't know this, is there's something in the rules called right of first recognition, which the majority leader has. So that means that anytime the majority leader stands up, no matter who else has been waiting to get called on, he gets called on first every time. So that's how he's able to run the Senate, through that privilege, because every time he stands up, he can try to kind of set the legislative agenda and whatnot. So he's the leader of the majority party, but he also runs the Senate and runs the agenda and decides what will be voted on and such.
Right. So what are your responsibilities as a student in charge of the Model Senate?
It really is a year-long process of preparing for Model Senate. So we have to, as I mentioned before, pull the legislation and do everything with that. We have to set up catering and it's no small task because we have beverage service every day, breakfast every day, the banquet, the cocktail reception, a mixer the first night that we have to go to Publix and do things. So there's all kinds of stuff like that. Also just kind of making sure the team's running cohesively, making sure the rooms are set up, that the legislation's put in the binders. Really anything you can think of that has to do with the event falls on, well, the student director, but then the planning committee, because one person obviously couldn't do it by themselves.
Right.
But there's also things like booking witnesses, which we have for each committee, has a witness testify before them. There's booking judges, all kinds of things that you don't think about that go into it. So it's an arduous task.
Right. That's very impressive. So have there been any incidents in the past few days, or is everything running like smoothly or according to plan?
That did run smoothly for sure. I think it's one of the, I'm not from my position, but just from having participated before, I feel like we ran it very smoothly this year. As I mentioned when we were in session today, normally on the last day we have a lot of students not show up for the session, but we had as many this morning and this afternoon as we did on the first day, which is kind of a first because kids, and especially local students, tend to kind of, don't want to get up early on a Saturday and all that kind of stuff. So I think it ran smoothly this year. A few legislative road bumps this afternoon with some of the stuff being discussed in Model Senate got interesting, but other than that, the event as a whole ran smoothly.
What do you mean? What happened?
There were some senators that were getting upset with their party leadership, mostly on the other side, and threatening to vote a certain way against how their senator might have voted because they were upset and things like that, but that tends to kind of happen every year. Not everyone, the legislative process is very messy, so not everyone gets to speak. And that's hard for kind of first-time participants to understand, in that we'll establish a speakers list, but then halfway through you could get to an amendment, which starts a new speakers list, and it's just very messy process. So sometimes there's some misunderstandings, but only minor things.
Right. How long have you been involved in the Model Senate, and what are you expecting to get out of it?
I started my freshman year, and I was just a regular old senator, sat way in the back, was like 99th in seniority. And then last year I was the assistant minority leader, obviously the show's the majority leader. So I've been involved each of my years at Stetson. It's a great experience. You meet tons of kids from other schools, which I love that part of it. And you make friendships over the 4 years. You see the same people come back, and I'm starting to kind of experience that now that it's my third year. And really a greater understanding of the legislative process. I hope to work in politics in the future, so being able to kind of mock play. We have a parliamentarian from the Congressional Research Service, so I mean, we follow the rules exactly as they do in the Senate, so I think it's a great learning experience.
What do you hope to do in the future regarding politics?
You know, I would love, right out of undergrad here, I'd like to get my law degree probably and a master's in public administration. And then, I mean, it's my goal one day to run for office. You know, I've always wanted to kind of do a job where I could make a difference and help people. And while there's a lot of negativity around politicians these days, there are still some good guys out there that do, you know, help people, and that's really what I want to do. So we'll see.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.